There's something I've noticed in my clinic over the past 40 years that most people never think about until it's too late. Every single day, without realizing it, you're sending signals to your brain about where your body is in space. Every step you take, every time you reach for something, every moment you shift your weight from one foot to the other, your nervous system is constantly calculating, adjusting, and recalibrating your balance. But here's what concerns me and what I want to talk with you about today. For most people over the age of 60, this conversation between the brain and the body starts to break down so gradually, so quietly, that you don't even notice it happening. And by the time you do notice, you've already lost something precious. You've lost confidence, you've lost stability, and in some cases, you've already experienced that first fall. I'm Dr. Samuel, and I've spent more than 4 decades working with older adults who come to me worried about their balance, concerned about falling, frustrated that their bodies don't respond the way they used to. I've examined thousands of patients, reviewed countless medical studies, and consulted with colleagues across neurology, physical therapy, and geriatric medicine. And what I've observed both in the research and in my own clinical practice is that there's a specific type of movement, a simple daily motion, that doctors have started to recognize as quietly protective against balance decline. It's not exercise in the traditional sense, it's not strenuous, it doesn't require equipment or special training. But when done consistently, this motion appears to maintain and even restore the delicate neurological pathways that keep you steady on your feet. Now, before I tell you what this motion is, I want you to understand why balance becomes such a critical issue as we age, because most people think of balance as something physical, something muscular. They think if they're strong enough, they won't fall. But that's only part of the story. Balance is actually a neurological phenomenon. It's a conversation. Your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips, they're all embedded with tiny sensory receptors called proprioceptors. These receptors constantly send information up through your spinal cord to your brain, telling it where you are, how you're positioned, whether you're stable or tipping. Your inner ear contributes information about your head position and movement. Your eyes give visual feedback about your surroundings. And your brain, this remarkable organ, integrates all of this data in milliseconds and sends commands back down to your muscles to make micro adjustments that keep you upright. But here's the problem. As we age, this entire system starts to degrade. The proprioceptors in your feet and ankles become less sensitive. The nerve conduction velocity, the speed at which signals travel from your extremities to your brain, it slows down. The vestibular system in your inner ear, which helps you detect changes in head position, becomes less accurate. Your vision changes, and perhaps most importantly, the processing speed in your brain, the computational power that integrates all of this information and coordinates a response, that slows down too. So what happens is this. You step on an uneven surface, your ankle starts to roll, your proprioceptors detect it, they send the signal up to your brain, but by the time your brain processes that information and sends a corrective command back down to your muscles, it's too late. You've already lost your balance, you've already fallen. And I see this every single day in my practice. I see people who are active, independent, confident, and then they have one fall. Maybe they trip on a rug. Maybe they miss a step. Maybe they just lose their balance standing up from a chair. And that one fall changes everything. They become fearful. They start limiting their activities. They stop going for walks. They avoid stairs. They hold on to furniture when they move around the house. And this fear, this protective instinct, it actually makes the problem worse. Because when you stop moving, when you stop challenging your balance system, it declines even faster. The proprioceptors become even less responsive. The neural pathways weaken, the muscles atrophy. It becomes a vicious cycle. Now, what I've observed and what research from universities and medical centers around the world has begun to confirm is that there's a specific type of motion that interrupts this cycle. It's a motion that most of us used to do naturally when we were younger, but somewhere along the way, as our lives became more sedentary, as we started sitting more and moving less, we stopped doing it. And the loss of this motion, this simple, natural movement pattern, Maybe one of the reasons why balance deteriorates so predictably with age. The motion I'm talking about is weight shifting, controlled, deliberate weight, shifting from one foot to the other while standing. I know that sounds almost too simple to be meaningful, but let me explain why this matters so profoundly for your nervous system. When you stand still, your body is relatively stable, your brain isn't being challenged, your proprioceptors aren't being stimulated, your balance system is, in a sense, dormant. But the moment you shift your weight from one foot to the other, everything changes. Suddenly, your center of gravity is moving, your proprioceptors are firing, your brain is calculating, your muscles are making micro adjustments, and this process, this dynamic challenge to your balance system, is exactly what keeps those neural pathways active and responsive. There's a study that came out of a major university research center a few years ago that looked at older adults who incorporated regular weight shifting into their daily routine, and what they found was remarkable. After just 8 weeks of consistent practice, participants showed measurable improvements in proprioceptive sensitivity, faster reaction times when responding to balance perturbations, and a significant reduction in fall risk. The researchers used sophisticated equipment to measure postural sway, nerve conduction velocity, and muscle activation patterns, and across all of these metrics, they saw improvement. But what struck me most about this study wasn't just the data, it was the participants' own reports. They talked about feeling more confident, more grounded, more connected to their bodies. They described a sensation of being more present in their movements, more aware of how they were distributing their weight, more attuned to subtle shifts in their center of gravity. And I've seen this in my own patients. I had a woman, she was 73 years old, came to me after a fall in her kitchen. She hadn't broken anything, thankfully, but she was terrified. She told me she didn't trust her body anymore. She felt like her legs might give out at any moment. I examined her, and from a strength perspective, she was actually quite good. She had decent muscle tone, reasonable range of motion. But when I tested her balance, when I had her stand on one foot or close her eyes while standing, she was very unstable. Her proprioceptive system wasn't giving her brain accurate feedback, so I taught her this simple weight-shifting motion. I told her to practice it every day, multiple times a day, just for a minute or two at a time. Stand with her feet hip-width apart, shift her weight slowly to the right foot, feeling the pressure increase under that foot, then shift slowly to the left, back and forth, smooth and controlled. And I told her to really pay attention, to focus on the sensations in her feet and ankles, to feel the muscles engaging and releasing. She came back to see me 6 weeks later, and I could see the difference before she even said anything. She walked into my office with more confidence. Her gait was steadier, and when I tested her balance again, the improvement was undeniable. Her proprioceptive awareness had sharpened. Her reaction time had improved. She told me she'd been practicing the weight shifting every morning while brushing her teeth, every evening while cooking dinner, anytime she found herself standing still. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, "Dr. Samuel, I feel like I'm friends with my body again. I'm not afraid of it anymore." That's what this motion can do. It rebuilds that conversation between your brain and your body. It retrains your nervous system to process balance information quickly and accurately. And the beauty of it is that it's completely natural. You're not forcing your body into strange positions or performing complicated exercises. You're simply practicing a movement pattern that humans have been doing for millions of years. Think about it. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, when you're standing at the sink washing dishes, what do you naturally do? You shift your weight, you sway slightly, you redistribute your balance. But for many older adults, this natural tendency has been lost. They stand rigidly, they lock their knees, they hold themselves stiff, thinking that stillness equals stability. But it doesn't. Stillness equals stagnation. Movement, controlled movement, that's what keeps your balance system alive. Now, I want to be very clear about something. I'm not suggesting that weight shifting is a miracle cure or that it's the only thing you should do for balance. Balance is multifactorial, and maintaining it as you age requires attention to many different aspects of health. You need adequate vitamin D for bone health and muscle function. You need good vision, and if you need glasses, you should wear them. You need to keep your inner ear healthy. You need to stay hydrated. You need to maintain overall strength and flexibility. But within this broader context of healthy aging, weight shifting stands out as uniquely powerful because it directly targets the proprioceptive system, which is often the weakest link in the balance chain for older adults. There's also something important about the way this motion affects your brain. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections and reorganize existing ones, doesn't stop at any particular age. Your brain at 60, at 70, at 80, it's still capable of learning, still capable of adapting, but it needs stimulation, it needs challenge, and weight shifting provides exactly that kind of challenge in a safe, controlled way. Every time you shift your weight and your brain has to process that change in your center of gravity, you're essentially giving your balance centers a workout. You're reinforcing the neural pathways that connect your sensory receptors to your motor control centers. You're training your brain to respond faster and more accurately to balance disruptions. I had another patient, a gentleman in his late 60s who was an avid golfer. He came to me because he'd noticed that his golf game was deteriorating, not because his swing mechanics had changed, but because he felt unstable during his swing. He was losing his balance, especially on uneven terrain on the golf course. We talked about his balance history, and he admitted that he'd had a couple of close calls, times when he nearly fell but caught himself at the last second. I explained to him that his proprioceptive system was likely compromised, and I introduced him to weight shifting. But I also explained the mechanism because I've found that when people understand why something works, they're more likely to stick with it. I told him that every time he practices weight shifting, he's essentially recalibrating his internal balance sensors. He's teaching his feet and ankles to communicate more clearly with his brain. He's strengthening the feedback loop that keeps him stable. He embraced it completely. He started incorporating weight shifting into his pre-golf warm-up routine, and he practiced it at home while watching television. 3 months later, he told me his golf game had improved significantly. But more than that, he said he felt steadier in all aspects of his life. Getting out of bed in the morning, walking on uneven sidewalks, turning around quickly when someone called his name, all of those movements felt more controlled, more confident. And he attributed it directly to the daily practice of this simple motion. What I find so encouraging about weight shifting is that it's accessible to almost everyone. You don't need to be in great shape to start. You don't need special equipment. You don't need a gym membership. You can do it right in your own home, standing at your kitchen counter, holding onto a sturdy chair if you need support initially, and you can progress at your own pace. Maybe in the beginning you hold on to something for security. Maybe you only shift your weight a little bit. That's fine. The important thing is that you're activating your proprioceptors, you're engaging your balance system, you're sending signals to your brain. Over time, as your confidence builds and your proprioceptive sensitivity improves, you can reduce your reliance on external support. You can shift your weight more fully. You can even add small challenges like closing your eyes for a few seconds or standing on a slightly unstable surface like a folded towel. I want to address something else that I hear frequently from my patients. Many people tell me that they're afraid to practice anything related to balance because they're worried about falling. And I understand that fear. It's completely valid. But here's the thing. If you never challenge your balance, it will continue to decline, and your risk of falling will actually increase. Weight shifting is different from other balance challenges because it's controlled. You're not standing on one leg. You're not closing your eyes and spinning around. You're simply shifting your weight back and forth while maintaining contact with the ground through both feet. It's low risk but high reward in terms of neural stimulation, and the consistency matters more than the intensity. I'd rather see someone practice gentle weight shifting for 2 minutes every single day than see someone do an intense balance workout once a week. Because what we're trying to do here is maintain and strengthen neural pathways, and that requires regular stimulation. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't brush your teeth for an hour once a week and expect good oral health. You brush for 2 minutes twice a day, consistently, over time. The same principle applies to balance training. Small amounts done regularly accumulate into significant improvements. There's also emerging research suggesting that the act of focusing your attention on the sensations in your feet and ankles while you're shifting your weight may enhance the benefits even further. This is sometimes called mindful movement or somatic awareness, and what it means is that you're not just going through the motions mechanically, you're actually paying attention. You're noticing how the weight feels as it transfers from one foot to the other. You're feeling the muscles in your calf and ankle activate and relax. You're sensing the pressure changes under your feet. This conscious awareness seems to strengthen the brain-body connection even more effectively than doing the same motion while distracted. I've been doing this work for a very long time, and I've seen countless interventions, therapies, and treatments come and go. Some are helpful, some are overhyped. But what consistently impresses me about weight shifting is its combination of simplicity and effectiveness. It aligns with what we know about neuroplasticity and proprioception. It makes physiological sense, and most importantly, it works. I've seen it work in my patients, and I've read enough peer-reviewed research to know that the effects are real and measurable. Now, I want to take a moment to talk directly to those of you watching who may have already experienced a fall or who have noticed that your balance isn't what it used to be. First, please know that you're not alone. Balance decline is one of the most common age-related changes, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Second, please don't let fear immobilize you. Yes, falls are serious, and yes, you should take precautions to make your environment safer. Remove tripping hazards, improve lighting, install grab bars where needed. But also recognize that your body still has the capacity to improve. Your nervous system can still adapt. Your proprioceptive system can still be retrained. And incorporating something as simple as daily weight shifting can be the first step toward rebuilding your confidence and your stability. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. How old are you and where are you watching this from? I ask because I'm genuinely curious about who's finding this information and whether it resonates with your experience. And if you've noticed changes in your balance, if you've had a fall, or if you're just starting to feel a little less steady than you used to, let me know. This conversation is important and your experiences matter. As I bring this to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought. Balance is not something that you either have or don't have. It's not fixed, it's dynamic, it's trainable, and it's within your control to influence. The choices you make today, the small practices you incorporate into your daily routine, they accumulate over time into significant changes in how your body functions. Weight shifting is one of those practices. It's simple, it's safe, and it directly addresses one of the most common and most concerning aspects of aging, which is the gradual loss of stability and the increased risk of falls. You have the power to interrupt that decline. You have the ability to retrain your nervous system, to sharpen your proprioceptive awareness, and to rebuild your confidence in your body's ability to keep you upright and steady. It doesn't require dramatic changes or heroic efforts. It just requires consistency, attention, and a willingness to invest a few minutes each day in your own well-being. You are capable of this. Your body is still capable of adaptation and improvement, regardless of your age. And I hope that this information empowers you to take that first step, to start practicing this simple motion, and to experience for yourself the difference it can make in how you move through the world with confidence, stability, and grace.
This video contains health-related information created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. If you believe you may have a medical concern, we recommend consulting a qualified medical professional.